All right, in this explainer, we're opening the case file on a virus so deadly it's considered a global threat. We're talking about something that emerged from the shadows and can kill up to 3/4 of the people it infects. This is the story of the Nipah virus.
So let's set the scene. It's late 1998 in Malaysia, and something is terribly, terribly wrong. A strange illness is just tearing through communities of pig farmers. At first it seems like a really bad flu, but then it attacks the brain, causing this severe inflammation, what doctors call encephalitis. We're talking confusion, seizures, and for way too many, death. You can just imagine the quiet panic that was starting to set in.
So the authorities jumped into action, but their first response was a critical misstep. They assumed it was Japanese encephalitis, a totally different virus spread by mosquitoes. So they launched these massive fogging campaigns to kill the mosquitoes. But it didn't work. People just kept getting sick, especially folks who worked really closely with pigs. It became terrifyingly clear they were fighting the wrong enemy. By the time the outbreak was finally brought under control, the toll was just staggering. 105 people were dead. The world had just met a brand new virus, and its first impression was absolutely devastating.
So that was the scene. A terrifying medical mystery unfolding in real time. The stakes could not have been higher, and it begged the question, how do you fight an enemy you can't even name?
Well, after months of frantic investigation, researchers finally got a breakthrough. They analyzed spinal fluid from one of the victims, and they isolated the agent. And guess what? It wasn't Japanese encephalitis. It was something the world had never, ever seen before.
They named it the Nipah virus, or NIV for short. Now, this virus is zoonotic, which is just a sciencey way of saying it jumps from animals to people. It's in the same family as measles, but believe me, it's infinitely more deadly. In fact, and get this, it's a biosafety level 4 pathogen. That is the highest risk category there is, putting it right up there with viruses like Ebola. This means it can only be handled in labs with the absolute maximum level of containment.
So how does this thing actually get inside our cells? Well, you can think of it like a microscopic break-in. It uses a special tool, its G protein, kind of like a key, to find a very specific lock on the outside of our cells. Once it's attached, another tool, the F protein, basically melts the virus's outer layer right into our cell wall. This lets it inject its genetic material inside, and from there, other proteins get to work hijacking our cell's machinery to make thousands and thousands of new copies of itself.
So the big question was, where did this deadly new virus come from? Researchers eventually traced the source to these guys, fruit bats of the Pteropus genus, also known as flying foxes. These bats are the natural reservoir. The virus just lives inside them, doesn't make them sick at all, and they shed it from time to time in their pee and saliva.
Right, so this discovery led to the most critical question of all. If the virus lives harmlessly inside these bats, how did it manage to jump into humans and become such a killer? Well, it turns out there wasn't just one simple pathway. In Malaysia, pigs acted as what's called an amplifying host. Basically, bats infected the pigs, the virus multiplied like crazy inside them, and then it jumped to the farmers. But in later outbreaks in Bangladesh and India, the virus found a more direct route. Bats would contaminate raw date palm sap, which is a popular local drink. And this is really critical. In these later outbreaks, the virus learned to spread directly from person to person. This whole process has a name. It's called a spillover event. It all starts when a bat sheds the virus, maybe onto some fruit or into a pot of sap. Then an intermediary animal, like a pig or a person, comes into contact with it. That leads to that first human infection. And from that single case, a deadly outbreak can ignite. So we understand the virus and we know how it travels. But what actually happens when it gets inside a person? What does this disease really look like up close?
This number right here. This is what keeps public health experts up at night. The case fatality rate for Nipah is somewhere between 40 and 75%. To put that into perspective, in some outbreaks, for every 4 people who got infected, 3 of them died. It's a truly mind-boggling mortality rate.
And the speed of the disease is just frightening. After about a week, maybe 2, of incubation, it kicks off with what feels just like the flu. But then it attacks the brain. The progression to severe encephalitis can be shockingly fast. Confusion and seizures can escalate to a coma in as little as 24 to 48 hours. And even for the lucky few who manage to survive, the nightmare might not be over. This is one of Nipah's most insidious features. The virus can just lie dormant in the body. It can literally reawaken months or even years later, causing a relapse or triggering devastating neurological problems for the very first time, long after the person thought they were in the clear. So, Nipah is clearly a formidable threat. But the story doesn't just end with the virus. It continues with the scientists, doctors, and public health officials all around the globe who are fighting back. And that right there is the central challenge they face. Because as of today, there are no licensed vaccines or specific drugs for Nipah. Treatment is really limited to intensive supportive care, managing symptoms, keeping the patient hydrated, and just hoping their body can win the fight on its own. So without a cure, prevention is absolutely everything. This requires what's called a One Health approach, which recognizes that the health of humans, animals, and the environment are all deeply connected. Simple, low-tech things like putting bamboo covers over date palm sap pots can stop contamination at the source. And in hospitals, strict infection control is just non-negotiable to stop the virus from spreading among doctors and nurses.
Because of its crazy high fatality rate and its potential to cause a major epidemic, the World Health Organization has designated Nipah a priority pathogen. This basically puts it on a short list of diseases where we need to fast-track research for tests, treatments, and vaccines.
And you know what? That accelerated research is showing some real promise. There are actually several vaccine candidates in human trials right now, including one that's built on the same tech as the Oxford COVID-19 vaccine. There's also a new antibody therapy that's shown it can be effective. It is a genuine race against time to develop these tools and get them ready before the next outbreak hits. Which leaves us with this final, critical question. That very first Nipah outbreak in Malaysia wasn't random. It was directly linked to deforestation and climate events that pushed those fruit bats out of their natural homes and into closer contact with farms and people. The story of Nipah is a stark warning. It's not just about one virus. It's about the growing risk of these spillover events in our changing world. It forces us to ask, what else is out there waiting?